Hi guys, I'm Nate from Recap Now. Today, I'm going to recap a 2023 thriller action movie called Dangerous Waters. A young girl, her mother, and her mother's new boyfriend embark on a sailing adventure to Bermuda. However, when criminals suddenly attack their boat, the pleasure trip turns into a desperate fight for survival and a quest for vengeance. The film begins with a teenage girl named Rose, who has bruises all over her face and appears to have barely survived a life-threatening circumstance while remaining traumatized. The picture then turns to a flashback from weeks before, when Rose's mother, Alma, arrives home from work. Rose eagerly wishes her mother a happy birthday tomorrow. Alma asks her to finish packing because they'll be going on a boat excursion with the mother's boyfriend tomorrow. Rose hesitantly agrees and departs for her hotel night shift. The next morning, she returns home from work, and her mother also arrives with their belongings. Rose isn't excited about this vacation because she doesn't want to be a third wheel, but Alma insists on her attendance. On their trip, Rose asks her mother about her boyfriend, and Alma says she hasn't known him long, but he's a nice guy. Rose is amazed that she can trust him enough to go on a 10-day sailing excursion. Soon after, they arrive at the dock, where Alma is greeted by her boyfriend Derek, who shows her the path they will take to Bermuda. When Alma is packing up her stuff in the car, Rose notices a man approaching her mother and later asks her mother what the man said, to which her mother replies that the man merely asks where she is going looking so good. Rose ultimately meets Derek for the first time, and he informs her that he purchased a second-hand yacht named Annalisa. After a brief talk, the three board the yacht and begin their adventure. After a while of sailing, Derek surprised Alma with a birthday cake decorated with a funny tombstone, and they celebrate together. He gives Alma a beach t-shirt and Rose a knife for self-defense. The adolescent inquires about his job, and he discloses that he used to be a cop but now works as a private security consultant. He then shows Rose how to tie a knot and asks her to assist him sail the ship. Later, they go outdoors, and Derek teaches Rose how to control the ship. Alma was taking shots from Rose's phone when she was smacked by the mainsail and fell into the water. Fortunately, Derek saves her, and when Rose goes to get first aid and a blanket, she discovers an AR-15 rifle and some pistols hidden inside the boat's cabin. Nonetheless, she rushes to offer her mother the blanket and first assistance. Alma apologizes to Rose for dropping her phone in the river, but she insists it's fine. All of a sudden, the three notice the severe weather and enter the cabin. Alma claims they haven't been very far and advises they return home, but Derek tells her that the weather will be fine tomorrow. Rose wakes up at midnight owing to strange noises, making it difficult for her to fall asleep. The next morning, Rose awakens to find that the weather has cleared. She joins her mother, who is sitting peacefully and drinking. Rose feels unhappy here and wishes to return home, but Alma believes that this place is wonderful. She then apologizes for not being a good mother and admits that she can't give her more. Rose feels horrible about this and assures her that she is the best mother ever. Derek then arrives to join them, and Rose challenges him about the rifle, to which he responds that it is for work and asks if she has any issues with it. The teenager says no, but displays a desire to use it. Derek then pulls out the rifle and tells her how to fire. Surprisingly, she shoots extremely well, and he is astonished with her abilities, describing her as a rapid learner. He asks whether she has done this before, but Rose answers uneasily that it is her first time, which Alma explains is because her husband was a soldier who perished in the war. Rose's mother also claims that she enjoys fighting. In the following scenario, Rose discovers on her laptop that there is a ship nearby, but ignores it. Meanwhile, Alma and Derek are drinking and having fun, and they invite Rose to join them for a drink, but she quickly becomes dizzy and retires to her room to sleep. She eventually wakes up and hears some activity outside. She glances outside and witnesses a ship approaching them, which hits the yacht. Two guys from the other ship begin to threaten Derek and request that he return something, but he pretends to have no idea what they are talking about. Alma begs the onlookers to leave them alone, but the captain strikes and injures her. We discover that the captain is the same man from the previous scene, which shocks Rose, while Alma asks her to hide. When Derek continues to say he has no idea, the captain decides to waste no time and mercilessly shoots both the poor mother and Derek in the hand, causing him to tumble into the river. While hiding, Rose gets a gun and braces herself for the worst. The captain and his henchmen enter the cabin and eventually discover what they are looking for. However, they fail to spot Rose and set fire to the ship before departing. Moments later, she realizes the yacht has been set on fire. She then grabs a fire extinguisher and quickly extinguishes the fire. Unfortunately, as she walks outside, she discovers her mother's deceased body, which devastated her. The next morning, Rose is alone and confused what to do, especially considering the ship's status, which has been severely damaged and burned. Rose attempts to fix the yacht's engine but is unsuccessful. She wraps her mother's body in garments so that when she gets home, she may properly bury her. She then decides to call for help, only to learn that the radio has also been damaged by the fire from yesterday. Rose investigates and finds Derek in the sea, bound to a rope. He begs her for help, so she pulls him to the yacht and tends to his wounds. She lashes out at him for allowing her mother to die and asks who those people were, but Derek says he has no idea. She then asks him what she should do and shows him the SOS transmitter she discovered, but Derek replies, "It's useless." Since the yacht isn't moving, he orders the girl to grab a spare jib, tie it to a rope, and place it up the mast. Despite the difficulty, the girl completes all of her tasks. The next day, Mary takes care of Derek while still grieving for her mother. Later, she snoops around the cabin and finds some images of Derek with the killers from last night. Realizing he had lied to her, she quickly binds him with a rope and snatches his knife. However, after fixing the sail, she cannot find Derek at his usual location, so she searches for him inside the cabin. Derek emerges from the toilet, surprising Rose, and informs her that she is unable to tie a decent knot. She presses him about the guys from last night, and Derek finally responds that those people are monsters, and the less she knows about them, the better. Later, he attempts to repair the yacht engine but fails. Rose proposes they return, but he claims the ship would be pulled away by the current. That night, Derek asks Rose to keep an eye on the cockpit while he rests. He tells her to continue heading northeast so that they will reach Bermuda shortly. The next day, Derek catches Rose wearing her mother's necklace and claims he gave it to Alma, but the adolescent doesn't believe him because her mother owned it for many years. Derek then reveals that he has been attempting to woo Alma since Rose was in middle school, and after many years, she finally gave him a chance. Derek begins ranting aggressively the next night, while Rose is still in the cabin. He is unhappy because they are heading toward the Atlantic instead, and they are unable to alter direction due to the strong current. When his irritation boils over and he begins cursing, a terrified Rose escapes to her room, closes the door, and holds a revolver. When she wakes up the next morning, she is excited to see a neighboring island and immediately directs the yacht towards it. As soon as they get close, they board a lifeboat and cruise towards the island. Later, Rose accidentally breaks her pole in the sea, and when she tries to retrieve it, she nearly drowns. Fortunately, Derek dives into the river and brings her to land. He then performs CPR on her till she eventually awakens. Later, the two explore the forest and realize that it is an uninhabited island. Because it is now too late, they decide to spend the night there and start a fire. Derek tells Rose that she shot extremely well last time and compliments her abilities. Rose then questions Derek about his life, and he says he was an excellent cop for 10 years. However, he received nothing for being a wonderful person, so he opted to work for the bad ones. He also enjoyed lying and stealing from the terrible folks he worked with and did not feel bad about it. Derek inadvertently tells her about his wife, Annalisa, who left him because he was a loser. His boat is similarly named Annalisa, but he lied about not knowing who owned it originally. He then informs her that the captain who killed Alma is the head of a ring, and that if he had seen Rose on the boat, he would have taken her. The adolescent angrily declares that she would kill the captain who murdered her mother, but Derek laughs and says she doesn't even know how to tie a good knot. He then wraps a rope over her hand and shows her how to tie the knot properly. While doing so, Rose sees the SOS transmitter in his rucksack, which turns out to still be functional. Derek suddenly admits that he did not give Alma the jewelry and has not known her for long. He simply felt she was gorgeous and wanted to sleep with her. He expresses his annoyance when he realized Rose was also joining him on this vacation, but he becomes thrilled when he discovers she is likewise attractive. Rose is astonished and asks him to activate the transmitter, but he refuses, explaining that he must murder her since she knows too much about his business. He moves and attacks Rose, but Rose manages to get the advantage. The girl flees from him and hides in the wilderness. She wakes up the next morning but only makes it to the edge of the high woodland. Having no choice, she slowly descends and gets at the beach when Derek notices her and begins shooting. He injures her leg, but Derek then slips down the cliff and injures him. Rose approaches him and discovers that he is seriously injured. Nonetheless, he attempts to attack her with a knife. He asks her to take him to the boat and promises to activate the transmitter in exchange. She refuses to believe him and attempts to turn on the transmitter herself, but fails. Derek then states that he intended to sell her to the captain in exchange for saving his own life. Hearing this, an outraged Rose flees, leaving the man alone. She boards the safety boat, then climbs on the yacht and tends to her injuries. Rose awakens that evening to see the yacht ready to drown. Since she can't fix it, she takes some supplies and boards the lifeboat. Throughout the procedure, she tries to get Alma's body into the lifeboat, but it falls into the ocean. This devastated the teenager, who began to wail helplessly inside the lifeboat. Now she is alone and hungry, with no idea how to survive. The next day, Rose notices a ship nearby and attempts to alert it with flares. Unfortunately, due to the sun, the ship misses her signal, and it appears that her little opportunity is lost. However, that night, she is fortunate to be saved by a speedboat and carried to the ship. It's most likely the same ship that arrived in the morning. When she arrives, she is promptly served a delicious supper, but the crew stares at her with lustful eyes. A clearly dressed woman appears in the kitchen and asks if she is new, but a man immediately removes her from the area. When Rose sees the familiar bald man who was also present on the terrible night of her mother's murder, she realizes something and later requests permission to take a shower from the team. After taking a shower, she dresses up and applies makeup to make herself appear lovely. She knows she has boarded the same ship as the captain who killed her mother. She then walks to the control room to meet the captain. He doesn't let any girl enter the control room, but he makes an exception when he sees how lovely she is, and she thanks him for saving her. Rose sees this as an ideal opportunity and begins seducing the captain, while the captain orders his crew to leave the room. Rose then mentions that the ship is rather enormous and asks if he can teach her to sail. Excited, he begins showing her various switches and explaining their functions. When the two are alone, Rose declares that she is injured and seeks medication. He instantly agrees to administer medicine to her and proceeds to locate it. However, the girl takes advantage of the situation and smashes him in the skull with a wrench many times, killing the captain on the spot. Soon, one of the crew members discovers a logo on Rose's rifle and believes she is carrying one of their weapons. They begin searching for her, but she slips by them and enters a room where she meets the previous woman. Rose asks her if she knows where her gun is, and the woman confesses that there are several guns in the engine room and even shows her the way. Before Rose leaves, the woman explains that she is not the only girl on the ship. There are many more. Rose uses this information to sneak into the engine room and hide from the crew members. She eventually finds her gun, just as a crew approaches her, but she manages to shoot him to death. The other crews attempt to assault her, but she kills them one by one. Later, she encounters a lady from the ship's crew and engages in a fistfight with her. Despite the crew's best efforts, Rose maintains her advantage and chokes the woman to death. Rose then enters a room containing many imprisoned girls, but before she can liberate them, the bald man approaches her and holds her at gunpoint. He is ready to kill her when the girl from earlier enters and attacks him from behind, while Rose shoots him in the head. Rose then tries to get to the radio room so she may communicate with the outside world. At this moment, things take an unexpected turn when she runs across Derek again, who is still alive. She asks how he got here, and he says he used the SOS transmitter to reach the captain's ship. Rose is amazed that the captain spared his life, so he explains that he has worked out a solution with him. He now wishes to take her to the captain to make him happy. but Rose laughs and declares that she has already killed him. Derek, enraged by this, slaps her, forcing her to fall down the steps and pass out. He then goes to get a gun to shoot her, but when he returns, she has already left. Following this, he starts seeking for her all throughout the ship, following the blood streaks left by Rose. He eventually arrives at a place where Rose releases a chemical on him. She takes advantage of the circumstance and rushes to stab him. And after a fierce struggle, she stabs him in the heart with the dagger Derek gave her as a birthday present. Rose lies on the ground, relieved, having killed all of the crews and the captain. The females from the ship approach her and notify her that they are nearing town and can see lights in the distance. Back in the present, Rose is being questioned by a police officer who praises her bravery. He tells her that all of the released girls have been reunited with their families and invites her to return home as well. Rose expresses sadness that she no longer has a house or family, and the cop consoles her by telling her that she does have a future and that she battled for it. Please do hit that like button if you enjoyed the recap. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell for more movie recaps. Stay tuned for our next cinematic adventure, and until then, happy watching.